Good day, Python students. In this video, we're going to cover the basics of GitHub operations so that we can both save locally and up to our GitHub repositories for our various assignments and tasks. This is a tool set that is used widely within the computer science domain, and you might see yourself interacting with it in the future. We're going to begin with just overviewing the basics and kind of the structure of the cycle that we're going to have to use to store and save our data with GitHub. And then we'll actually do some practice with it. All right, so why GitHub? Well, GitHub is but a version control system, and on our computers, we have something called Git, which is the local version control. But then by having the repository and having it up on GitHub, then stores it in another location in case of massive computer failure or some other incident. And so this is a fail-safe backup. And so there's going to be a couple common commands that we're going to want to use to be able to gain access to GitHub repositories locally and to save locally and then push back up to our GitHub repository. And so the main ones we're going to talk about today are git clone, which you've likely already done to git an assignment. And then three others, git add, git commit, and git push, which we'll explain in a little bit more detail here in just a second. For information, here's a quick reference guide to GitHub commands that you can then pursue even further. There are many more commands and ways to interact with GitHub to then use it more robustly. Again, the first thing you have to do in order to work with a GitHub repository that is up on the web is to clone that repository. And so here is a common vernacular for doing that within our environment, such that we would type git space clone space, and then we would get this long piece of information from our GitHub repository where we see the green code button, and then we're choosing the SSH option for cloning our repository. And so the first thing we would do is we'd clone that to the working directory we wanted in. It would save it as a new directory within our folder structure. And this one is for assignment 1, at least the example I'm giving here, such that then we would change directories into assignment-1- your username. So your GitHub username will be what will finish off this GitHub repository. From there, we'd want to change into that directory, so it'd be ready to go to do some of the additional steps. But before doing anything else, we'd potentially want to work on our assignment, and we would need to, either work in our Jupyter notebook for that assignment or create or work on a Python script. And once we've got working code that we're wanting to capture and save in this more fail-safe way, then that's when we're going to want to capture these changes and then use the other three commands in Git to then store our file up on the internets. And so the first thing we have to do after we modify our file in some way that we want to have this fail-safe backup is that we need to add it. And so what we're doing here is we are adding or staging a file to be committed and then pushed and saved to the World Wide Web. And so for example, here I've got the example written as git space add space assignment-1.ipynb. And so again, this is a generic title. You may, and you probably should, change the name of your assignment file to then include your username. But again, we're going to stage it first within our local directory and for a local Git version control. Once we've added all the files we want to change, maybe we've got a small little data file we're also adding, or maybe we've got another text file that we're just wanting to add in there for somebody else to read later. We can add new files if we want. We can add modified files, all those sorts of things we can add. But then we move on to committing our files. And so it's in this commit where we then often give a message. This -m here is indicating a message that we then put within quote marks. So git space commit -m, and then we want to give just a slight little name to what this commit is. Maybe I finished problem 1, or working code for problem 2. Things like that, small little things so that you know what this commit was about, so that if you ever wanted to go back later to be able to recover something, you knew what was being done at that particular commit point. Once we've done this commit, then we would have our version controlled locally on our local system. But ultimately, what we want to do is we want to add it to our remote repository up on GitHub so that we can then access it from any other location or potentially even share it with the wider world if we have a public repository. Note that your assignment repositories are private, primarily to keep your work safe and that from prying eyes of others in the class. Finally, then, what we want to do is we want to push to our remote repository, and this now again within the directory where we have our files stored, git push origin main. And so git push is the command. Origin means that we're just committing to the original site of the clone, and that we're doing the main branch. We could get into branching. We're not going to do that in this class. That's a more robust way for managing your code. But again, we're just going to work mainly on our main branch and then post up to that. And then you can go back up to your GitHub site to make sure that it is updated in your online repository. So what we're going to do is we're going to practice this just a little bit. And so here I am on Joanne, and I'm just going to demonstrate what we're doing here. And so I've already cloned the repository, and I've got a couple things going on within my mets directory. I'm going to go ahead and change this up just a little bit there. Now we can see it. All right. So I'm going to clear the screen first here. I'm going to cd into my met 330 spring 24. And we'll see that I've got a couple files in here. And then I've got two directories, my assignment 1 and assignment 2 directory, which I can also see on the left-hand side here in my navigation window. I'm going to go ahead and go into my assignment 1 folder. We see I have my assignment 1 file, which I also have up here. And so I already worked on question 1, but maybe now I want to work on question 2. So in order to do question 2, I need to create first name equals Kevin for myself, last name equals Gobert, and then I want to print out using concatenation here, first name plus space plus last name. Whoop, looks like I missed an end quote there on the last name, so I needed to go and modify that, rerun that cell. That looks like it's working code now, so I'm going to go ahead and save progress on my file here, just locally in my notebook. I'm going to come back over to my terminal window. Now if I type, here's even another command that we can see, git status is going to tell us, do I have any modified files? I do. My assignment 1 file is modified. So now I want to git add my assignment name. So now I've staged it, and if I do git status again, we'll see I've got a modified file, changes to be committed, so I've staged this. Now then I want to do my commit, git commit -m, working code for problem 2. So I've now committed my changes locally. Now I am ready. If I do git status here, we're going to see it's done. We're all stored locally, but now I want to push it up to my repository. So git push origin main. Takes just a hot second to go ahead and push that up to my original directory. And it looks like I had some temporary failure in name resolution, so probably not going to be able to fix that now, but this is what should work, especially on the local, on our local system within the weather center. I'm going to try it one more time. There it went, so I must have just had a momentary internet connection issue. And if we go to that repository where I'd gotten this from, I'm going to refresh this window. We see that right now. I cloned it 2 weeks ago. Now if I refresh, look at that, 1 minute ago. And then I could even look and see what it looks like in my repository. And so that's it for this video. Thanks for watching.